joining us. Jonathan Schanzer, VP for Research at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Jonathan, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
All right, so we've got two things related and swirling today from Turkey sending these airstrikes to northern Iraq. And then, of course, we've got Vladimir Putin saying he's pulling out of Syria. Is there a big picture meaning to all this?
Well, I think there are two things at play here, and they certainly are intertwined. One is that Turkey is increasingly, I think it has to be seen as an ally that we simply cannot rely on, that it has adopted policies that have both strengthened the Islamic State and have exacerbated its own problems with the Kurds. And so now there is a cocktail of, by my count, 5 or 6 different terrorist groups ranging from Islamists to Kurdish nationalists, all looking to do damage to the Turkish state, and obviously that erodes Turkey's longstanding role as this bulwark of secularism and pro-Western sentiment right on that very dangerous border with the rest of the Middle East. And in the meantime, what we've seen with Vladimir Putin, as he has battled with Turkey there as well, there have been some skirmishes on the border between the Russians and the Turks, but it now looks like the Russians have secured the regime of Bashar al-Assad. It looks as if Assad will likely survive, and the only other significant force remaining to fight Putin will be ISIS and the Kurds. These are the same groups, of course, that the Turks are battling with. And so what we have is just a very messy situation that has not been cleaned up by either the Turks nor the Russians, and so I expect conflict to continue.
All right, let's focus for a minute on Putin. Was it surprising or out of context that he would choose today to withdraw those troops?
It's a bit of a surprise. I didn't expect him to do this, I think, right now. I think there are a lot of people who thought that Vladimir Putin did not have a long-term strategy in having his troops deployed to Syria, and that he was looking for an opportunity to get out because it's gotten more expensive for him. I think he feels like he made his point that he was able to come in and sort of steal the thunder of the United States and really muddy American policy over there. He's done that well, and I think he feels comfortable enough with the outcome for him to leave.
All right. He has said that he was going to do things, and he doesn't always do them. Can we believe that he's going to make a full withdrawal here?
Well, I think I don't know if he'll be able to make a full withdrawal. I think a lot of that will depend on whether the Islamist forces that are in Syria, whether they begin to bog him down. Mm-hmm. This is a tactic that we saw that took place against U.S. forces as well, even as we decided that we were going to draw down in Iraq or even in Afghanistan. We saw an uptick in attacks that made it more difficult for us to leave here in the United States while also saving face. And so I think that could actually have a significant impact on Putin's Syria policy as he tries to wind down.
You know, so much of this, and you mentioned, is about America. What did he accomplish in this? Did he weaken America, which is what many believe that's all he really wanted to do?
I think that is probably the case. I think that Vladimir Putin was looking on. He saw the Obama administration assert time and again that it refused to put boots on the ground in Syria, assert that Syria was really not our battle, not our problem, and that the president hoped for some kind of a natural, peaceful resolution to this conflict, which was all but impossible. And so Vladimir Putin saw this. He realized that the president lacked the will to be there on the ground, and so Putin came in and asserted himself and changed the course of the battle. I think he weakened American objectives there. He strengthened Assad, who we said we wanted to have out of power. He certainly didn't weaken the Islamic State. It's just as strong now. And so I think he's just gone in, asserted Russian power, and now he appears to be on his way out.
Mm-hmm. And obviously this is going to help him at home, which is also part of what many analysts believe that this big power grab is about. Absolutely.
I mean, this is about maintaining his sort of the persona that he's crafted at home as this sort of strong leader, kind of a successor to the Soviet Union, a resurgence. We won't call it a full Cold War, but certainly a cool war, and I think that's what he would like to see now. It's one less based on ideology and more based on raw power, and that has long been Vladimir Putin's objective.
All right. In the meantime, getting back to Turkey, sending those airstrikes, muddying things, as we say, for America. What is left for the United States on this? Have they accomplished anything, or are they staring at still negativity from a couple of sides now in Syria?
I think the U.S. options are as inhibited now, if not more so, than they were when all of this began. The Turks right now are engaged in what looks to be just an all-out war against the Kurdish factions. The Kurdish factions have been the most successful in battling ISIS, and here we are saying that we're committed to the war on ISIS while also supporting the Turks. We're just getting pulled in many, many directions here. And again, so much of this also has to do with the fact the U.S. does not want to be involved directly, or at least the Obama administration does not want to be involved directly. And so it just doesn't look like there is a way forward. But again, I think it's important to stress here that the Turks are such an unreliable ally for the United States and for NATO that they have, I think through policies that they've adopted, maybe inadvertently, maybe on purpose, they have strengthened ISIS over time. They are weakening our only strong ally in that part of the world right now, in the Kurds, and so the Turks have left us with very few options left as long as we remain their allies. And of course, we have advanced radar out there. We've got a significant air base rumored to have nuclear weapons stored there as well. I mean, all sorts of things that would make our exit from this alliance even possible. And so it really does look like the Turks have the United States' hands in a bind.
They are in a bind. So, as you say, what way forward? Our country talking to America like other coalition partners about the war against ISIS. And then, when we get into the complexity of what you just described, and then, allies are now perhaps foes deliberately or inadvertently, do we need, in your opinion, a whole new plan there?
We do, and I don't think we're going to get a plan for the next 10 months. The real question to my mind is whether we have one, come late January of 2017 with a new president. And as you, I'm sure, have all been watching from
we
Canada,
have.
Things are a bit messy here in Washington right now, and we really don't have a lot of clarity in terms of who would become our next commander-in-chief. What we can say is that there are several candidates that do, I think, have made a commitment to trying to change the balance of power on the battlefield in Syria, and perhaps would have a more committed fight to ISIS, maybe more of a commitment to supporting the Kurds, might be more critical of the role of the Turks, might want to stand up to the Russians, but that certainly does not encompass all of the candidates. We've certainly seen some that either haven't articulated a plan or really seem to be inclined to continue in the sort of neo-isolationism of Barack Obama, which I think would be very dangerous given the fact that we've now had 4 years of this sort of isolationist approach, and you can see how much more dangerous Syria has become in the process.
Is that it? Is that going to be part of this election campaign? It already is. I mean, we haven't got into the nitty-gritty of it, but Donald Trump is pulling the strong man, saying he could get along with Vladimir Putin. There are no details there, and you're right. It is crazy messy. And then the Democrats and Clinton, where you would expect a deeper plan, can they really come out and criticize this administration that now with everything that's going on, they seem to need Barack Obama? Is this going to affect all the things that we have been talking here about?
It certainly will, and again, it's very difficult to game out exactly who's going to do what. Look, if you want to sort of speak broad brushstrokes, I think we see, very little in the way of real serious planning yet on the part of Donald Trump. Although the things that he said about Vladimir Putin are very interesting, given how much Putin has been kind of rubbing America's nose into what he's been doing in Syria. With Bernie Sanders, I think we haven't seen a real interest in getting back into the Middle East. I think he seems to be sort of content with the plan that Obama has had, which is keep all of this at arm's length. I think Hillary Clinton has at least challenged some of the president's Syria policy, at least from the edges, and we might see more and more of that, particularly as the American elections go. We have this phenomenon that we call the move to the center, where candidates typically become more centrist. If they're on the left, they move closer to the right. If they're on the right, they move closer to the left on certain positions. And so you might even see Hillary adopt even a more centrist position on Syria. And then most of the other Republican candidates seem to have an interest in wanting to do more in Syria. What that means, we don't know. The trick here, though, is to not do too much and not do too little. In other words, not get America or the West bogged down in another messy war in the Middle East, but certainly try to find a way to end this conflict as we know it. And so the devil will be in the details, and that's why this election is so incredibly critical, to have these issues play out in a real debate. And the problem, in my view, is that our debate hasn't been terribly substantive enough, that it's been more of a circus and less about the issues, and that, of course, is very troubling.
And it's a distraction. Jonathan, it is a circus. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate having your input today.
Anytime.
Anytime.